Should you buy an Ally X in 2025?
Yes, you should. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
All right, so this is kind of following on from our recent conversation. This is like part 2
Yeah.
of like, will we see an Ally 2 in 2025?
Yeah.
And following on from that, I kind of had the thought of like, well, actually, should you buy the Ally X in 2025 as
Yeah.
well? And I know there's actually quite a common question we see.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the most common things I see in the comments is people on the edge of purchasing but wanting to wait in case.
Yes, just in case.
What
yeah.
happens if there's a new update? And of course, we've seen some new updates from different manufacturers coming.
Yep.
And there's obviously talks of that, the Z2 Extreme
Yeah.
and all the rest of it. So should I just sit on my money and wait?
Yes.
Or should I buy an Ally X
Yes.
in 2025? So I kind of want to go through and we'll kind of start with that first point of the Ally 2. Are they likely to update that? And should that mean that you will hold off in purchasing it?
Yeah.
I think we're pretty nailed on that they won't be updating it this year.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. First off, the Ally X isn't even a year old.
Exactly.
You know, like it didn't come out or even get announced, I think, until June.
Yeah.
So like we're way off that yet. And then, you know, you've got the other side of it where they have said themselves, Asus have said, we don't really, if we can help it, like want to be releasing yearly iterations.
That's a really important point to make, because I did see some people disagreeing with us in the first part of this when they're saying it's a PC company, it's Asus.
Yeah.
They update every year. It's what they do.
Yeah.
And the Ally came out and then the Ally X came out a year later. Why wouldn't they do it again? They actually said it to us very clearly.
Yes.
They want to avoid doing that as much as possible.
Yes.
And the Ally X was a necessary incremental upgrade because of the flaws that the first version had, the battery life.
The Ally X was essentially the first one.
Yeah.
You know, like because they released the first one and it had issues. There were teething problems, literally. And they said to us directly, they said, look, we've listened to the community.
Yeah.
You know, and we've heard people's troubles, what their problems have been, what they want more out of. And they put that together. That's why they chose the bigger battery, the additional RAM, the 2280 support, you know, a better construction, a better ergonomic. Like they took everything that people had a problem with the first one. This was no means meant to be a version 2 or anything like that. This was just a revision, the definitive edition of the Ally. So that, yes, was like a yearly upgrade, but they said that was just to fix what they'd done wrong in the first part.
Yeah, so we're not even a year out from the Ally X for certain, because that was June, July time, wasn't it, that it dropped. They don't want to be doing yearly upgrades. But I guess the other point as well, on if you're looking at just this part, if there's an Ally 2 and that should change your purchasing choices, is if an Ally 2 did drop in the summer, will it be a noticeable improvement enough for you to go, actually, that's a lot more compelling than an Ally X?
Yeah, and I suppose that comes down to what you hold dear to yourselves.
What's important?
Yes, because I know a lot of people struggle with the 7-inch screen on the Ally and the big bezels. You know, people don't like that. They just don't. Personally, I quite like that. It keeps the form factor very small. It is a portable
It's light
device.
Battery life's amazing.
Battery life, like everything's great on it. But so screen could be a problem for you, especially when there's lots of new ones coming out with 8-inch screens.
11-inch screens.
Yeah, 11-inch screens. Yes, nice one, Acer. So you know, that could be a potential for you to hold off from buying. And the other thing as well is obviously if it had a Z2 Extreme. I think they're the two things that could change that would sway people. I don't think anything else about the Ally X.
One thing.
Oh, go on.
The biggest criticism that it had.
What's that?
Not OLED.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd factor that into the screen side. But yes.
Just to say it kind of like overtly.
Yeah.
The fact that it's not OLED at the moment, I think a lot of people were disappointed in that. We've covered it at length why it's not. But if like what Lenovo are promising with the Go 2, that there is a way around OLED and VRR flicker being potentially fixed. Yeah. If you can have a well-running 8-inch VRR OLED screen, then I start to question its compelling offering. Then it starts to become, that is interesting.
That would be an upgrade, you know, especially if it's paired with the Z2 Extreme. Yeah.
But those things, if you had the Z2 Extreme in it, let's say it's the same RAM capacity that it does have, same storage, same battery, but an 8-inch OLED with a Z2 Extreme, I would hazard a guess at about £1,100 retail.
I'd say at least 1,000.
Yeah.
At least 1,000.
They're expensive components.
I also feel like they would be doing themselves a disservice for like the true Ally 2.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like when the Z3 comes, because for people that don't know, the current generation, the Z1 Extreme, is RDNA 3.
Yeah.
Since it's got the 780M in it, right? The Z2 Extreme, the new chip that's been announced this year in CES, the Lenovo Legion, I can never say that.
Yeah.
The Go 2 will have is an incremental step up to the RDNA 3.5, right? The next one, so potentially next year, so the Z3 Extreme, let's say, will be RDNA 4.
That's a generational
That's
step.
a generational leap. So that is big. That's a big jump. So I feel like if they did an 8-inch OLED VRR, which is what we all want.
Yeah, of course.
None of us like deny that fact.
Yeah.
You know, if they did that prior and just did an incremental increase in performance and stuff, when they finally dropped the Z3 Extreme, people would be like, oh, well, I've already got my OLED VRR
You've
screen.
done this every year.
Yeah, I've already got that. Whereas if they waited and went from the Z1 Extreme LCD VRR to the RDNA 4 Z3 Extreme OLED 8-inch VRR, like everyone's going to upgrade.
Yeah, that
like
if that dropped in the summer, let's in a fantasy land, everyone would want it.
Oh, 100%.
And I'd 100% say hold off if that was likely to happen, but it's not. We're a good year, maybe 2 away from that.
At least a year.
So if they were to upgrade it, if that was to happen, which we don't think is going to happen, if they were, we're likely to see an RDNA 3.5 from the Z2 Extreme. That's not a compelling enough jump to justify what the increase in cost will be.
Exactly. Yes.
From 799 kind of standard now, it'll be up to at least 1,000.
Yes.
Even if it did have an OLED would kind of make me question slightly, but that jump in price would probably not be justifiable for what I'm getting.
Specifically for people that already have the X,
yes,
it wouldn't be worth the upgrade. Yeah. For people holding off, maybe it's only a couple of $100 more. Maybe that's important to you.
But the probability is if that did happen, the Ally X would drop in price as a consequence.
Yes,
as we saw with the Z1 Extreme version of the non-X version.
Precisely, and I think that would be the better buy.
Yeah.
Until the Z3 Extreme came out. You know, until that RDNA 4 came out.
It's arguable to say even that the original Ally is the better buy right now. If you're looking at pounds for performance.
Yeah, precisely. If you're in the market for a handheld right now and you're wondering whether to get the Ally X or wait, the best buy right now, if you can spend a bit of cash and then save the rest and keep saving ready for the Ally 2, which could potentially be in, I don't know, 18 months. Yeah. Get the Z1 Extreme original white Ally.
Is it a 45 watt-hour battery in that? Was it 40? It was small, wasn't it?
It was small. I think it was 45.
I say it's small when we compare it to the alternatives that are dropping on the market right now, which is a good segue.
Yeah.
It's the same as what's being launched right now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
So actually, the OG Ally is, if you're worried about cost for your investment, that's a real smart buy.
Yes. Yeah.
It does have a small battery. That's the biggest flaw.
Yeah, it's got its flaws.
Ergonomics aren't as nice. I prefer the black over the white.
Yeah, the joysticks aren't very nice.
True, yeah.
You know, they also wear around the edges on the anti-friction ring, which isn't great.
Yeah.
So the overall build quality just feels lesser.
Yeah.
You know, I've got one. Well, my wife's got one. Yeah. I've got the X.
Of course.
So yeah, I did offer to get her the X as well, and she said no. I'll just have the old one. I was like, okay, cool. But you know, so that is a good buy, especially if you're just going to be sat at home with it plugged into the wall.
Oh, you're winning.
Then you're winning.
Yeah.
Like it's the same chip.
Yeah.
Less RAM. That's the main thing here. Is it's got 16 gig of RAM versus 24 that the Ally X has, and that does play a part in modern games.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. The amount you can dedicate to VRAM in that is the big thing, isn't it?
So some games will struggle, but most of them will be all right. But yeah, if you're on that fence of not sure, then that's probably a good buy, specifically against the new stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, well, and that's where we're going to go to now. Is that so? The next part of it, should you buy in 2025, is that what are the alternatives, really? And obviously, you have the Steam Deck OLED.
Yeah.
It's already sat on the market. That's about half the price.
Yeah. Well, it's the same price as the original Ally.
Yeah. And Firstly, it's on Steam OS, so that's a divider for you straight away.
It depends what you want.
That's a big limiting factor as well as to what games you
Yes.
can access and what games you can play, and obviously the problems with anti-cheat multiplayer games.
Yep.
It's kind of a well-known issue, but some people really love Steam OS, and its usability is certainly there. If you're coming from console, it's very easy to understand.
Yeah.
There's lots you can do with it. There's lots you can't, and the performance of it, even now. There's some workarounds to get DLSS working on it.
Yeah.
It's still an issue with the Steam Deck.
Yeah. So
performance is a real problem with it now.
There's some hacks there to inject FSR3 frame gen into games that support DLSS frame gen. DirectX 12 games on the Steam Deck, and it's questionable.
It's questionable that the results from it aren't great.
No. But it's there, which is great if you've got Steam Deck and you want to increase
some longevity.
Yeah. But if you're looking at purchasing one,
I'd say if you're trying to answer the question, should I buy an Ally X in 2025? I think you've probably all discounted the Steam Deck as an option.
Probably, yeah.
So really, the alternatives are what's dropping or what's just dropped right now. And obviously, CES just happened, and we saw a lot that we covered. First up, and I think probably the most compelling alternative is what Lenovo.
Acer,
Right? Can we just discount Acer Nitro Blaze from this conversation entirely?
Oh.
Because firstly, Acer didn't make it. It's just a name slap.
Yeah, it is. It's 11 inches, though.
And the Nitro Blaze 11, yes, is an 11-inch tablet. So if you're a giant, it's great.
It's good, yeah.
But it is also £1,100.
For outdated hardware.
Outdated
no
hardware,
that,
tiny battery, horrible ergonomics.
Nobody buy that. It's a joke.
We're discounting Acer from this conversation entirely. Lenovo is probably the most compelling or interesting offering right now.
Absolutely. That's the only real option, to be perfectly honest.
You've got the Go S, which is out now.
Don't forget the original Legion Go.
Yeah, fair point, actually, yeah. But, let's just talk about the new ones.
Okay.
The Go S, which is out now, and was also a second version of it released in May with Steam OS as well.
Yep.
There's a version with the Z1 Extreme and also a lesser version with the Z2 Go chip. Has I got that right? Which is Lenovo's.
Yes. Or is it the
proprietary? It's Z2 Go. It's Z2 Go.
It is Go, yeah,
because it's Lenovo's.
Yeah, I kept thinking it was S, but it's not. It's the Lenovo Legion Go S.
Yes.
With the Z2 Go. It's horrible. Lenovo, what are you doing?
And that was our big criticism with this drop. There's just there's like 4 variants of the Go S. And then the Go 2 was announced, but it's not out yet.
Yeah, so we'll get to the Go 2 because that's the big heavy hitter.
Yeah, that's the compelling
So you've got 4, I believe, options of the Go S.
Not including RAM configurations.
Yeah, so no, that's where I was going. So you've got a 16 gigabyte Go Z2 Go chip.
Yeah.
And that can be either Steam OS or Windows, I believe. Now, I don't think they're bringing 32 gig to the SteamOS version.
I didn't see that.
I'm not too sure. Correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah.
But they might. There is another edition, and I believe there's 2 versions of this one. So there was 3 variants. So this next one will be 32 gig. Z2 Go.
Yes.
Windows. And 11.
So for those who don't know, the Z2 Go is exclusive to Lenovo.
Yes.
But despite the fact that it is the Z2, which is the next generation, you would think it underperforms compared to the Z1 Extreme.
Yes.
So it's a lesser processor than the Z1 Extreme.
Yes, yeah.
Just to kind of clarify that.
Yes. So you've got the 32 gig Go 2 Z2 Go.
Yeah.
Oh my days.
Go.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
And then you've also then got a third variant of the Windows version, which will be 32 gig Z1 Extreme. And now that will be the best one there.
Yeah, and that's an interesting offering.
Yes. I'm not sure on the price of that, though.
Well, and this is the thing. The baseline version, the Windows baseline 16 gig Z2 Go processor was £600.
Yeah.
Direct from Lenovo.
600.
So less performance.
Yes.
A smaller battery as well.
Yes.
And I know battery's not everything to everyone. I see the comments, but I think we're talking about handhelds. It's a really important part of the conversation.
It is something to consider it. Yeah, 100%.
Considering the amount of criticism Acer's had with the first one,
which is why
small battery.
And since they brought out the X with an 80 watt hour, that's all I see online is unless it's got 80 watt hour, I don't care.
Yeah.
So battery is a big
thing. So a smaller battery. It does have that larger RAM, but a slower processing APU.
Yes. But that's 600 for the 16 gig.
Oh, it is, isn't it? Sorry, I'm even getting confused because the LX is 24. Isn't
24
it? Memory, yeah,
and it's 200 more.
200 more,
but it's often on sale for 750, so 150 more.
What was the screen?
It was an 8-inch VRR LCD.
LCD, but with VRR.
Yeah.
So bigger screen, same VRR. That's cool. A very compelling offering, to be fair.
And it's got a mini trackpad, which is important for people.
Yeah. RTS games.
Yeah.
And before Xbox or Windows gaming operating system lands, that's going to be an important thing to consider.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's still having to use annoying
base Windows.
Windows.
Yeah.
That's definitely a compelling offering. I don't think necessarily represents value.
This is what I was going to say. As a device, looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Really like it. I love the 8-inch VRR. 16 gig, fine. It's all right. Z1 Extreme, good. We know that performs well. Everything is good there, but 600.
600 for the Z2 Go version.
Yeah. So exactly. For the Z2 Go version.
Yes.
So it's even worse. Oh, I was going to say, compare that model with the base Ally.
Exactly.
At like 400.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a no-brainer.
Okay. Yeah, that makes it way more expensive.
So in a lot of this kind of conversation, you need to consider not just should you buy it, but your price point.
Yes.
Your price point is everything in this conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
If you've set aside the £700-800 you need to buy an Ally X, then you need to consider everything in that bracket.
Yes. Yeah.
If you've got £500-600 as your budget, which is fine, then you can't look at the Ally X and everything in that bracket. You need to be looking at the Ally first version. The Lenovo Go S is part of that conversation.
Absolutely,
So in that point, then, if you're on a limited budget, I think probably the original Ally is the best offering.
The original Ally, or then if you really want that nice 8-inch screen, brand new release, the 16 gig Z2 Go is a nice device. It will be better than that Ally.
Yeah.
But is it 200 better? Is it worth £200?
Definitely not.
For a very minor increase, which is just the screen.
Yeah.
And the performance is potentially worse.
Yes.
Because it's got a Z2 Go chip in it.
So really then we need to wait and look at what we know is coming, which is the Go 2, the Lenovo Legion Go 2.
Well, before we get there, we've still got the 32 gig Z1 Extreme.
Oh gosh.
Lenovo Go 2.
Yes.
S. Right? Oh man, all these numbers are so freaking...
Just Go S, not Go 2S.
Go S, that's it. Yeah, Go S. Go S yourself.
So I'll clarify. Yeah. It's the Lenovo Legion Go S, 32 gig, Z1 Extreme.
Yes. Versus the Ally X.
On Windows.
Because that I fully expect, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know the price. If we know the price yet, I reckon it will be the same price as the Ally X.
100%.
But it's got a 55 watt-hour battery.
Yes, which is a big deal.
Big deal. So you're trading battery for RAM.
Yep.
Right, so the processor is the same, the APU is the same, but you're going to get 32 gig of RAM versus 24 gig, but 55 watt-hour battery versus 80.
Yeah.
Potentially the same price. Now, I would personally say I would choose the bigger battery because the 24 gig of RAM I've not had a problem with at all. I set aside on 99% of my games on the Ally X 10 gig of RAM to the VRAM.
Yeah.
So it leaves 14 gig to system.
Yeah.
Not had a problem at all. I can push textures high on a lot of games. Sometimes you have to drop to medium, but whatever. So that is a considerable factor. That then just falls down to, do you want that 8-inch screen versus a 7-inch screen? That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And
that can be a deciding factor for you.
Yes.
Because 8-inch is probably the perfect point.
It is the perfect size, yeah.
Although I always like to be a contrarian. I do like the 7-inch. I like the form factor that it gives.
Yep.
If they could lose the bezels, I'd be totally in love with the 7-inch.
That's the worst thing. If they could keep the shell of the Ally X and then just fill the bezel out, maybe that's an inch, maybe it's not, maybe it's 7.5 inch, something like that. If they could keep the size the same but just stretch that screen out like they did with the Switch OLED almost.
Yes.
I know the whole thing got bigger, but whatever. That would be ideal.
Yeah.
But personally for me, once you're playing a game,
You're sucked in.
You're sucked into it. I'm not going, like, I wish it was.
It's not Game Gear, is it? It's not like.
It's not a little 4x3 screen in the middle.
So then moving on is the Go 2.
Yes.
The Lenovo Legion Go 2.
This is the actual heavy hitter.
Which we know is coming this year. We don't have a firm date on it yet, though, do we?
No, there's none.
We just saw the prototype
We saw
and the specs.
prototype, yeah.
So that, I mean, it's probably this year. There's a possibility it's next year.
Yes. I would say, realistically, since we've seen a prototype, which means subject to change.
And we know that not all the variants of the Go S are out yet. We've got to wait until May for the Steam OS versions.
Yeah.
So that's halfway through the year. Are they going to then, the next month, drop the Go 2? Of course not. They're going to leave sales happen. So at best, you're looking at the end of this year.
I was going to say end of this year earliest, I would say. If not, beginning of next year.
Now, this does have a compelling offering.
Yes.
It has the Z2 Extreme, which, as we were saying, is a step up, the 3.5 RDNA.
Yeah.
It has the screen is the most compelling part of this for me. It's what we were saying that would be the dream with the Ally 2. An 8-inch OLED VRR panel. Now, it's a prototype, so we still don't know if they fixed VRR flicker with OLED.
Yeah.
If they have, that's a game changer.
Yes.
If they haven't, they've just overlooked it, or they're not worried about it. Because it's not like a breaking problem. They can still work. You just get flacker. You get flicker in the dark areas.
Is that what Pac-Man does?
He flackers. So that's a really compelling offering. It was 32 gig as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, 32 gig. 8-inch. Yeah, it's just that OLED VRR flickering. I couldn't deal with it.
It would be a real problem.
I literally couldn't deal with it, which means I would turn off VRR.
Yeah, which defeats the object.
Yeah. So I couldn't deal with it unless they could like prove that it's not an issue.
Yeah.
Or people test it and show that it's not. Which again, you could still find regional variant changes. Of panels.
Of course. Yeah.
You might.
That's a really important point to make as well, especially with panels, because they're not always universal internationally.
Yes.
Some regional manufacturing will use slightly different manufacturers for their panels in different areas. So it may be that they've gone universally international to fix this problem.
Yeah.
Or it may be that the American version has flicker, but the European version doesn't.
Yeah, or vice versa. Yeah.
That would be, so you can't guarantee it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. But let's pretend in a ideal world that they fixed it.
Yeah.
Then wicked. 32 gig of RAM, Z2 Extreme, which is an increase. You're probably looking at like 20% increase over the Ally.
It'd be noticeable.
Yeah, 32 gig of RAM, perfect. You've got 16 gig of VRAM, 16 gig of system RAM. You're laughing.
Yeah.
I suppose the only negative here, and I'm sorry, Lenovo fans, is the software. So,
we had that criticism about Asus before the Ally X.
Massively.
The software was awful. Armory Crate has got a history of being
trash.
Yeah, let's be being kind to it. They overhauled it, and it genuinely is.
Yeah.
Is one of the most redeeming features of that console.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah,
good. And obviously that's going to be carried forward to their other things. You've got the XG Mobile and all the rest of it. It's going to be in there as well. Lenovo's software is not there yet.
It's not at the same standard, no. And it doesn't matter because you're buying it for the parts, really. So you can not even use the Lenovo software potentially because people put like Play Night on these devices, which is like a UI that just grabs all your games together and you can make it look fancy.
And also,
and stuff.
If Xbox operating system does come about,
precisely,
it may not even be part of the conversation anymore.
Yes, exactly, because Game Bar might turn into something bigger, and stuff like that, which we've seen with. Is it the Z2? I think it's the Z2. Oh, the Z Go. Oh, whatever it is, the Z2 Go S. What's it? What is the one that's got Steam OS on, but it's also got a Windows variant? I don't know anymore.
The Lenovo Legion Go S.
The Go S. We've seen already that Lenovo have gone the route of going Game Bar for some of the options.
Yeah.
Right, where you push the button on the right and then it pops up on the left.
I know.
What? But anyway, when you look at the software, it's just not up to scratch.
No.
I'm sorry, it's not. But again, maybe you don't care. Maybe you don't care about the software experience.
Well, you've got to consider all these things.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
why we bring them up, because you're trying to make a purchase decision, and part of that purchase decision is your user experience. And currently, SteamOS isn't actually out yet.
No.
Xbox OS, or whatever it's going to be called, isn't out yet. So your user experience is Windows and then whatever software they've got. And so currently, Asus is the best offering for that.
I might be, just to clarify, I might be confusing my thoughts of the Windows Game Bar thing with the MSI Claw 8 AI
I was just going to say, because MSI's is awful as well.
Yes, I think, sorry, I'm getting confused with that.
MSI's looks like it's been made by a child.
Yes, it does, yeah. But before we get onto the MSI, because that's actually a real product, the Lenovo 2, the Go 2 Z59.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, it's not even real. So, you know, that one, we're saying end of this year, early next year.
But that's a guess.
That's a guess. These specs, you're looking at least 1,100, I reckon.
Comfortably.
You know, 1,100 for that, right? By that point, if Asus stick to their guns, the Ally X might be 600.
Yeah.
You know, okay, it might be 700, but it might be around that 600 price. You might be like $500 saving there.
Well,
and it's only an incremental step up.
Before we get on to the other alternatives, I'll skip to the price as well, because that's actually a really important point, because you've just touched on it. End of last year, we saw Asus on the Asus official store drop the price to $750 as part of a sale.
Yes.
So I always think it's interesting to pay attention to the sale prices, because it gives you an idea of where things will go soon.
Yes.
Because it shows what they can afford to sell it at and still make a comfortable profit on it.
Yeah.
So they dropped it to $750. So you could imagine it going to $700 without it being any stress to them at all.
Yes.
So at that point you go, well, that's an incredibly compelling offer. And we know that's, if you're just going to follow trends, that will happen this year.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when you look at, I reckon once it hits a year old, we'll start seeing it drop in price. Yeah. Look at the original Z1. Yes. Like that was like 600 or 700?
I think it was 7, I'm sure.
699 when it launched. Pretty sure. We see it all the time for like 450.
450. I saw it as low as 350 for a while.
I saw it as 399 was the cheapest I saw it.
Maybe it was that then. I definitely remember it being in the threes and going, well, that's Steam Deck price.
Yeah, exactly.
What we're doing.
And it was meant to be 700 at launch. You know, the original Z1, the white one, and that comfortably goes for 450 now, like on average.
Yes.
So the X will definitely drop in price. So whether they're sat on stock or whatever, you know, tech devalues quite quickly. So we will see that drop. And in that time, we're going to see these new ones that are coming out at the highest price because they're brand new products. So, yeah.
So when you consider the price, even at full resale, when you consider the price of the hardware that you're getting for the price, it's already a compelling offer.
Yes.
You start reducing that price and it's impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to make a purchase decision of should I buy it this year, well, right now it's an incredibly compelling offer. If you're worried about the future, the only thing that's really going to happen is if you're going to wait a few months, you might get it a little bit cheaper.
Yes.
You might.
Yes. And so the other alternative, which is out now, is the MSI 8, the MSI Claw 8 AI Plus.
Well done.
Wow. What a name.
It's good. You did well.
Why didn't they just call it the MSI Claw 8?
Yeah, 8. It would have been fine. MSI
what's
Claw
with
8.
the AI Plus, Rod?
Well, I reckon they've got some AI magic in there.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Oh, wow. That sounds good. Yeah.
Probably not.
But that is a bit of a monster as well.
Performance-wise?
Well, no, just like on raw spec. Performance is questionable.
Fair point.
It's Intel instead of AMD.
Yes.
So we've got an 8-inch 16 by 10 VRR LCD panel.
I'd love to know in the comments, right? Do you like 16 by 10?
Yeah.
Like, what's the...
I do.
I know you do. I don't like it. It feels a little bit too close to 4x3 for me. It's a bit like, ooh.
Yeah.
Why has it got a big forehead?
I like it though. Yeah, it gives you more like space.
It definitely gives you more real estate and like, more viewable space, and like for like any UI that's in the game and stuff, it's better.
Yeah.
I just find it hard to get my head around.
Yeah, fair enough.
I want to know if you guys like 16 by 10 or you widescreen till you die.
So yeah, it's got a 16 by 10 screen, 32 gig of 8500 megatransfer RAM.
It's quick.
So it's quicker than the Ally X, so faster RAM and more of it.
Yeah.
Wicked. I think it's got an 80 watt hour battery.
Yeah.
The biggest problem here is that it's got an Intel APU. Now, Intel aren't the best at APUs. AMD are the kings of APUs. And whilst it's a really good APU, right now, as the time of filming, because it's not very new, or because it is very new, it's not very widely supported, which is the issue we had with the Z1 Extreme when it launched. It took a bit of time for games and devs and stuff to get games to work good with it. That's what we're seeing with the MSI 8. I'm just going to call it that.
But it also requires multiple pieces of hardware to be using it in order for it to be widely supported more.
Yes, yeah.
And it doesn't feel like that's the case.
Yeah, I've no idea what chip. I can't remember what chip it's using and what else it's available.
I stopped paying attention to Intel a long time ago.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, and in recent years they've kind of dove off a cliff.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, all the 13th and 14th series CPUs that got bricked.
Yes.
Like, what is with that?
Yeah, it's awful.
Terrible. But anyway, so this MSI Claw thing is the only real compelling offer currently available, and that's $900. So it's $100 or £100 more than the Ally X. But we've seen, while some games get good performance, there's issues with textures not loading correctly, visual artifacting, because the chip's just not supported.
Yep.
The graphics card side of the APU just hasn't got that support there. And to top it off, this is the worst software by miles. It looks like a college student has made it.
I made it.
Yeah.
And I'm rubbish at stuff like that.
It looks bad.
Yeah, it does.
It looks horrible.
The final part really of the mix of should you consider it, and probably the most important part really, is that we're obviously considering the alternatives. Will there be a replacement? But the biggest part of all of that is actually how does it perform right now?
Yeah.
With current games.
Yeah.
Because obviously all these pieces of hardware will be fine with your back catalogue of older games,
yes,
whatever.
Yes.
But games that are launching right now, how does the Ally X hold up against them?
Yeah.
Is it struggling? Is it doing well? I mean, you're the best person I can think of to answer that question.
I've not had... There's one exception. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
I've not had a single issue with any of my games. And I'm talking just playing handheld on the thing itself. Ignore my eGPU rambles.
Good.
Because, that's different. I'm adding more power.
Yeah.
But yeah, just on the device itself, playing from the battery, in the various performance modes that it has, providing that you've got it on the highest performance output, 25 watt, then it will tackle anything that you throw at it.
Yeah.
Because any game that's, let's say, from 2018 and older, it's just going to raw power its way through it, and you're going to be fine. You can load up The Witcher 3 and just have a great time or whatever. From 2018 onwards, or maybe even newer than that, 2020 onwards, whatever. I'd say 2018 onwards. That's where all the more demanding titles are starting to show.
Yeah.
But it's also where we've seen upscaling techniques come into play.
Especially the past 2 years, it's
definitely
really
the past few years. Yeah.
accelerated.
Yeah, for sure. So whilst there is on board accessibility options there, for these upscalers and stuff, let's discount those.
Yeah.
Let's just not talk about those. Those are there, which can help, but they're driver level upscalers or frame gens. Let's just ignore that. They are there. So that's already given you some options, but let's just talk about the game and whether or not the game, the Ally, can handle it. Most games over the past 5 years, let's say, have got upscaling techniques built in them to make sure that people can enjoy them on a wider range of systems.
Yeah.
Especially PCs, which are such a Frankenstein mix of so many different parts. We've seen DLSS rise to fame.
Yeah.
You've got AMD FSR, specifically FSR 3, which is the upscaling side of it.
Yeah.
And then you've seen the introduction of Frame Gen, which came with FSR 3. So those are there. I've not had a single game not be able to run at considerable performance. I mean, even Spider-Man, a Sony game, running at 1080p at 60 FPS without Frame Gen.
And Miles Morales in particular looked unreal.
Amazing.
Like unreal.
I played
good.
the whole game. The entire game through.
Before we get onto the game that we have come across that is a problem that's worth considering as part of this conversation, I'll say my experience is like is the same but the opposite of yours. So I do no tweaking at all.
Yes.
I spend no time setting anything up. I literally download the game from Game Pass and play it.
Yeah.
Which I would imagine is kind of typical of a lot of the console players that have moved over. They're just like, oh, there you go, play it, let's go.
Yeah.
And all of the games I play from Game Pass all work flawlessly. And I'm only picking the latest releases to play.
Yeah, the newest stuff that comes to Game Pass. Yeah.
Just because I want to see what it looks like on there. Let's have a go on it.
Yeah.
Or I want to play on the move or whatever, you know. I've not come across problems. There was one of the Forza games is just broken
on PC
in general.
Yeah.
Which I thought was an LIX problem to start with. I thought this is going to be a handheld problem or something. It was not loading the shaders or something because it hung on that for ages. But no, it's just a broken game. But yeah, apart from that, the experience has been totally flawless.
Yes.
Console-like experience.
Yes. Even with like the most modern Call of Duty, like Black Ops 6.
Games that are releasing right now.
Yeah. Like you can run that with no frame generation.
I hadn't played Indiana Jones, actually. I'd quite like to try that.
Yes. I haven't.
Because that's a really beautiful looking game.
I've played a lot of Indiana Jones, but whilst I was playing it on my LIX, I was playing it in my eGPU docked onto my TV. Yeah. So did I try it handheld? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure I just loaded it straight up onto the TV and I played it that way. So I can't, attest to that.
But obviously, you've seen on the channel, you have been living Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for me.
Yes, I've been loving it.
And that's the first one we've come across that's actually there's an issue.
Yeah, well, a potential issue.
Yeah.
Because it really depends. Because the LIX, whilst it's got VRR, it does have support for LFC, low frame rate compensation. So when it drops below the VRR window, which I believe is 45 FPS and above is the VRR window, LFC kicks in.
Yeah.
So it's still basically VRR. Let's just say that. So still looks good, sub 45. So smooth, it's got that VRR effect. So with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, there's no upscaling in the game.
Yeah.
For AMD. There is if you've got an NVIDIA GPU on a PC, but unless you're NVIDIA, you ain't got a way of doing it.
A weird absence of support for AMD in that.
So that is on Square Enix. Yeah. That's their problem. It's not an LIX problem because pretty much every game in the past 5 years, like I said, has got
I would hazard a guess that something will happen to update that.
Yes,
in the near future.
I'd imagine to see an update that brings in FSR 3 or something like that. And as soon as that happens, then you're golden. But currently, there is no upscaling in terms of FSR in the game. So you're just using dynamic resolution to adjust the resolution on the fly to maintain a stable frame rate. You can absolutely lock the game at 30 FPS. And you can play the game. There's no problem. You won't dip below 30 at all, providing you've got the right settings. Check out our guide.
I had to get on the channel.
Yeah. So, you can play the game at 30, but a lot of people are like, I want 60 FPS, So again, checking out our guide, you can get that above 30, but really you're looking at fluctuations between like 35 to 45 FPS.
Yeah.
And that's what we're calling struggling.
And that's a really good point. Struggling. If you're not a pixel peeper, as in you're not like really focusing on having the overlay graph on all the time and watching your frames, I would imagine you'd play that game and have the best time and not notice.
Absolutely. And like I said, you've got
probably better than the PlayStation.
Probably. And again, you could absolutely lock it at 30, stick AFMF2 or lossless scaling on there, get it up to 60, and away you go as long as you like artifacting.
Yeah, and artifacting galore.
Yeah.
Awful.
We're not big fans of frame gen.
No. I think we could do a whole video on why we don't like frame gen.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. So the kind of long and short of it is every game currently works fine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
No problems.
Yeah.
And everything else on the market doesn't quite offer a compelling enough alternative yet.
There's nothing yet that's like dominating it. There's nothing that leaps and bounds. The only thing that will be like a bit of a better thing all round will be the Lenovo Legion Go 2, which
But
we
it's
won't
not out
see this year.
Yeah.
I really don't think we'll see it this year.
So I think the kind of general consensus, as you may have guessed right from the start, is that if you've got the budget for an Ally X right now and you're considering it, you should definitely buy it.
Yeah.
It's a smart. It'll be a really smart purchase.
Yes.
If you can afford it. If you can't, hold off. I would say the other alternative, really, if you want to save a lot of money, get the first version of the Ally.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say, hold out for the Ally 2 if you're money conscious, you know, because I really expect that would be early to mid next year. And that will be a proper jump.
Yes.
Then get that original Ally for as cheap as you can get it. Get one second hand or whatever.
300 quid second hand.
Yeah. So just pick one of them up to tie you over. See if you like it. You might not even like handheld gaming. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen some people buy them brand new and then flip them literally like a couple of months later.
Hurt my hands.
Yeah,
That's when I hear it.
Yeah.
Hurts my hands.
Or just they just didn't bother. They were just going back to their PC or whatever. But you know, so that is an option. We'll see if they release incremental upgrade this year or not.
But from what they said to us, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I hope they stick to that because
I hope so too.
It'd be a good break for them to do that.
I think it would be good, and it would be a good way to keep support from fans that have supported them with the Ally X.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If they hold fast, because they've been doing really good updates and stuff with the Ally X and many frequent ones as well. You know, if they can keep us all sweet that have bought an Ally X and go, you know what, you guys are good. We won't bother upgrading until the Z3 Extreme comes out. I reckon everyone that's got an X will be ready to upgrade by then anyway. You know, you would have had a couple of years out of it, ready to, you know, flog it on and upgrade.
100%. I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments down below. As normal, have you bought one already, or are you considering it? And do you agree with us? Should you buy it, or maybe you should buy the Acer Nitro Blaze 11 instead?
That one is our 100% recommendation.
100% my favorite.
Yes.
Or the Atari.
Oh, but yeah, that one.
Game Station Go.
Yes. What's all with all the goes everywhere?
I don't know. Goes and X's.
And S's.
And S's.
And twos.
Wait for the pros to start hitting these handhelds. That's going to happen next.
Yeah, the Ally Pro.
You know that's going to happen.
The Ally Pro Go 2.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, the Ally Pro 2 Go.
Yes, S.
Yeah. Goes.
Join in the conversation down in the comments down below if you want to talk to us as well. We do have a channel membership Discord where you can chat to me and Andy about all things gaming. And like before you leave,
I like that. That's it. That should just be how it ends now. Like before you leave.
Make sure you like before you leave. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Like before you leave.